happened on a Tuesday night, one of those long, quiet evenings that feel like background noise. I'd just gotten home from another 12-hour shift, dropped my keys into the bowl by the door, loosened my tie, and poured myself the kind of scotch you don't drink unless something's gone wrong. I hadn't even sat down yet when my phone buzzed. Just one short message. Just a heads up, I'm on a date. Don't wait up. XX. That was it. I stared at the screen for a long time, waiting for something else. A follow-up. Correction. Some kind of punchline. I thought maybe she sent it to the wrong person. Autocorrect gone haywire or some weird inside joke I wasn't in on. But no. The message sat there like it knew exactly what it was doing. And that's when my hands started to go numb. I remember standing there by the counter, every part of me trying to convince the rest that this wasn't what it looked like. But it was. There was no ambiguity, no typo, no excuse. That short message was the emotional equivalent of watching your house catch fire and realizing it's been burning for a while. You just didn't see the smoke until now. I didn't text back, didn't call, didn't yell. Instead, I went to the closet, pulled out my old carry-on, still had the airport tag from our last trip to Santa Fe, and rolled it over to the front door, sat it down, took a photo, sent it to her. No words, just the suitcase, just the quiet message that said, I got it, loud and clear. And then I waited. She didn't reply. No text, no call, just silence. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off, the suitcase still sitting like a monument to a truth I wasn't ready to face. I went over every detail of the last few months. Every cold glance, every late-night yoga class. Every time she looked at her phone and smiled just a little too long before putting it face down on the table. I knew something had shifted. I just hadn't wanted to name it. Around 5 in the morning, I heard the door click. She came in slowly, like she was walking into someone else's house. She looked tired, like she'd been crying in the car, but not in a guilty way. More like someone grieving a plan that didn't work out the way she wanted. I didn't move. I just watched her from the couch. She paused when she saw the suitcase. Her eyes lingered on it for a second, then flicked to me. Still sitting in the dark, like I'd been waiting for hours, because I had. Mark, she said, setting her gym bag down. It's not what you think. She didn't rush over, didn't try to explain. She just stood there, arms folded across her chest like she was already building her defense. And I felt this sick twist in my stomach because that was her first instinct, deflection. What do I think it is? I asked. My voice didn't even sound like mine. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I was upset, she said finally. You've been so cold lately, always working, always distracted. I just needed to feel something again. I nodded slowly, like I was grading her paper. And texting your husband to let him know you're on a date. That's your idea of expressing an emotion? It wasn't really a date, she said quickly. He asked me out and I didn't want to lie. I thought you'd appreciate the honesty. The honesty. Those words almost made me laugh. A dry, exhausted laugh that didn't make it past my throat. You didn't want to lie, I repeated. So instead, you decided to admit it to me like you were mentioning picking up milk on the way home? She ran a hand through her hair, looking everywhere but at me. I just needed space, she said. I felt like I didn't matter anymore. So you punished me for it? I said, standing up. You found someone else to prove you still had worth. She didn't deny it, didn't apologize. Instead, she walked past the suitcase like it wasn't there and headed toward the bedroom. We can talk later, she said. I'm exhausted. That was it. Not an ounce of shame. No panic. No flustered attempt to explain away the very clear line she'd crossed. Just cold detachment. Like I was the one being dramatic for reacting at all. I stood there for a long time after she closed the door behind her. Everything about her behavior that night, the calm tone, the lack of denial, the calculated way she shifted the blame, told me one thing. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Maybe not the first one, and definitely not the last. I wish I could say I confronted her right then and there, that I demanded the truth, made her admit everything. blew it all up. But I didn't, because some part of me still wanted to believe it was fixable. Instead, I sat back down on the couch and watched the sun rise through the blinds. In that silence, with her asleep in the next room, I thought back to the way she used to kiss me goodbye in the mornings, even if I left early. How she used to make coffee just the way I liked it. How we used to sit on the couch and talk about our day like we were still learning each other. But those things had stopped months ago, and I'd barely noticed. Maybe that was the worst part. The text wasn't the first signal, it was just the one I couldn't ignore. The strange thing about betrayal is that once the curtain lifts, your memory starts working in reverse. Suddenly, things that didn't seem worth noticing come rushing back with alarming clarity, like puzzle pieces dumped on a table upside down, flipping themselves over one by one. That morning after the text, after she came home and brushed everything off like it was just a momentary lapse, I tried to play it cool. I pretended to believe her, at least on the surface. But in my head, everything was on rewind. It started with the do not disturb setting. I remembered how Ava's phone started staying face down all the time, even when she wasn't using it. I figured she was just trying to stay focused or avoid work messages after hours. But then I realized, I couldn't remember the last time I saw a notification pop up on her screen. Not a single one. I checked once when she left it on the table while showering. Sure enough, DND enabled. Every time. Calls and messages silenced. No banner previews. And then there was the password change. A few months back, she'd switched from the thumbprint to a new 6-digit code. I asked her why. She said she was just being more cautious, because a coworker had her phone once and accidentally opened her notes app. Sounded reasonable at the time. But now it sounded like insulation. She used to leave her phone out. We'd share random memes or scroll Zillow together while joking about lake houses we'd never buy. But lately, she started keeping it in her pocket, or tucked under her pillow, or in her gym bag. It was always within reach but never available. Late-night rides were next. She'd started taking Ubers after her training sessions. Said it was easier than parking downtown near the studio. Except one night, I saw the receipt in our shared email. The drop-off location? Not even close to the yoga studio. It was in Capitol Hill. Not exactly the wellness district. I remember asking casually if she had fun. She nodded quick and easy. Yeah. Great class. Brutal instructor. My abs are toast. I nodded, smiled, played dumb, but I felt the lie brush past me like cold air. Then came the one-time lock codes. We had a smart lock installed last year, mostly because I was tired of misplacing keys. It lets you set temporary entry codes. She used one once when her sister visited. But lately, the logs showed more frequent entries using single-use access. Always around 8 to 10 p.m. Sometimes after I'd already gone to bed. I asked her once who came by. She blinked, paused, then smiled. Oh, probably Morgan. She borrowed my curling iron. Remember? I didn't remember. Another time it was Jules. She wanted to return a book I loaned her. I didn't even know Jules read. Then there was the missing wedding ring. At first, I assumed she forgot it during workouts. Then I noticed it was never on when she came home from training. When I pointed it out, half joking, trying not to sound bitter, she said it pinched during certain yoga poses. Said her instructor recommended removing jewelry to avoid injury. Made sense. Until I realized she wore it for everything else. Work meetings. Brunch with her mom. But not when she went out at night. Not when she left with her gym bag and came back smelling like faint men's cologne. I caught it on her scarf one night. Subtle, but it was there, clean, woodsy, sharp. Definitely not mine. And not anything I've ever seen on her dresser. She said it must have come from sitting near someone in the studio lobby. Or maybe the Uber driver. I nodded again. I always nodded. I started making a list in my head, mentally cataloging every tiny inconsistency I'd brushed off. ATM withdrawals before girls' nights. Receipts for restaurants I'd never been to. A Victoria's Secret slip I found in the pocket of her sports bag. Still folded. Never worn. The driver's seat in her car, adjusted way too far back. Like someone taller had driven it. I even checked the mileage once. She claimed she only went across town. But the odometer said otherwise. You don't need a smoking G*N when the whole house smells like gasoline. And maybe the worst part was how smooth she was. How easily she layered plausible reasons over each discrepancy. I didn't want to see it then, so I let her explanation stand. Gave her the benefit of the doubt every time. Until that text. That text ripped the skin off everything. It was like standing in front of a giant painting and finally seeing the pattern. All the brush strokes, all the chaos, it suddenly made a picture. And I didn't like what I saw. I started to test her quietly, asking subtle questions about her night, listening for the stutter, the hesitation. But she was good. Too good. Her answers were always light, confident, perfectly timed. No over-explaining. No details too specific. A liar who's practiced. I remember one afternoon. I asked what she and Morgan ordered when they went out for sushi the night before. She didn't miss a beat. Spicy tuna, dragon roll, and the salmon thing you like. But she forgot something. Morgan's vegan. Caught that one. Filed it away. Said nothing. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't ready to be gaslit again. I needed more. Not because I still doubted it, but because I knew she'd never admit it unless I had something irrefutable. That's when I started watching her patterns. When she left. When she came back. What time she texted. How she responded when I called. How often her phone stayed dark during our conversations. I even checked the smart lock logs again. Twice in 1 week. The door unlocked at 2:14 a.m. The code used wasn't hers. It was a guest code. One I never created. I asked if she forgot something on those nights. She looked at me like I was paranoid. Babe, I was with you both nights. What are you talking about? She wasn't. She was at a friend's. That was the last straw for me. The moment suspicion transformed into quiet certainty. She was lying. Repeatedly. Comfortably. The woman I married. Someone I trusted so fully I never thought to question her. Was constructing an entirely separate reality behind my back. And I had no idea for how long. The truth is, I don't think she ever expected to get caught. Not because she was arrogant, but because I was consistent, reliable, predictable. I never snooped, never grilled her, never gave her a reason to be cautious. That's what made me the perfect mark. But I wasn't blind anymore. That version of me was gone. I didn't explode. Didn't scream. I just watched. Because sometimes, to get the truth, you have to let the lie breathe long enough to reveal itself fully. And I was done holding my breath. There's a point where suspicion stops being a feeling and becomes a mission. You stop asking questions. You start collecting answers. After that last smart lock discrepancy, I spent 2 nights lying awake, my chest tight, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many times I'd been played like a background character in my own life. I was tired of gut feelings. I needed something real, something that didn't depend on Ava's mood or my ability to catch inconsistencies in her stories. That's when I ordered the tracker. It wasn't anything fancy. Small, magnetic, Bluetooth and GPS enabled. Fit in the palm of my hand and linked to an app on my phone. The kind of thing you could slide into a tote or glove compartment without changing the shape of a bag. She had a beige canvas tote she brought everywhere, brunch, errands, yoga. It sat by the door when she got home, tossed aside like it had no secrets. On Friday, she said she had a stretching workshop in Cherry Creek. Supposed to be 3 hours. Evening class, she said. Told me not to wait up. Gave me a kiss on the cheek that felt choreographed. As soon as she left, I opened the app. The blue dot didn't head toward her yoga studio. It moved east, straight to a boutique hotel just off First Avenue. One of those luxury spots with high privacy fences and valet service. I recognized it immediately. We'd stayed there once years ago for an anniversary. I remember how proud she was of the plush robes and overpriced minibar. Now she was back there with someone else. I parked across the street and K** led the engine. From the shadows of the passenger side, I watched the entrance. I didn't know what I expected. Part of me thought she'd go in alone and meet a group, maybe step into the lounge. I told myself I'd wait, watch her come out, and talk myself out of doing something stupid. But around 7:18 p.m. a man walked up behind her as she stood near the entrance. Tall, lean, confident walk, tan coat, dark jeans. He reached out, touched her elbow lightly, and she turned toward him, smiling. They kissed. Not a peck. Not an awkward side hug from a coworker. A slow, deliberate kiss. The kind that says everything without needing words. And then they walked inside together. The valet handed him a ticket, and I watched him put his arm around her waist as they stepped up to the front desk. They spoke to the receptionist. I couldn't hear it, but I saw what I needed. 2 room keys, passed across the counter. She took one. He took the other. They didn't even look around. This wasn't their first time. I stayed in my car for another hour, fingers frozen around the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the glowing Hotel Ava sign above the door like it was mocking me. At one point, I thought about getting out, walking in there, asking for the room number. But what would that do? Start a fight in a lobby? Humiliate myself further? I didn't want confrontation. I wanted evidence. Something she couldn't twist into a story about feeling neglected or trapped. Something that didn't depend on my memory of a conversation or a scent on her clothes. So I waited until the morning. After she came home, hair damp, eyes tired, lips slightly swollen, I asked her how the class went. She smiled and said it was eye-opening, told me her glutes would be sore for days. Then she showered, made herself a smoothie, and went about her day like she hadn't just spent the night with someone else. That afternoon, while she was in the bedroom folding laundry, I slipped out to her car. She always left it unlocked in the garage. Said she didn't like fumbling with keys when she had groceries. I opened the glove compartment. Inside, a folded receipt from the hotel, time-stamped for check-in the night before and check-out that morning. Room 312. A line item for 2 glasses of Cabernet from room service. No room-sharing fees. Just one night. 2 guests. Tucked beside it, a linen napkin neatly folded, with a faint ring of wine along the edge. And lipstick her shade. One of those dark mauves she only wore when she wanted to feel powerful. It hit me like a freight train. Not the kiss. Not the keys. Not even the room. But that napkin. Because it was int asterisk mate in a way no photo could capture. It meant they weren't just sleeping together. They were sitting across from each other, sipping wine, smiling, probably toasting to their little secret. She'd built an experience with him, something soft and deliberate. I put everything back the way I found it. Closed the compartment, wiped the handle, backed away. Later that night, I sat across from her at dinner. Reheated stir-fry, the TV murmuring in the background, and asked her how Morgan was. She said she didn't get a chance to talk much at the workshop. Morgan wasn't feeling well, she said, looking down at her noodles. She left early. I nodded. That's too bad. You should come sometime, she added. The instructor said partners are welcome. I couldn't even look at her. Instead, I stood up, rinsed my plate, and walked into the other room. Not because I was angry. I wasn't, not exactly. I was numb. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't about passwords or late-night withdrawals or rings left behind. This was confirmation. She had crossed the line fully, and I had proof. I didn't tell her I knew. Not yet. Instead, I started documenting everything. Printed the receipt. Photographed the tracker's GPS trail. Took pictures of the glove compartment's contents. Every day after that, I looked for more. Texts, behavior changes, names she dropped casually. I learned the man's name was Ethan. He came up once when she mentioned a new hire at the firm. Nice guy, she'd said. Bit intense. Works in strategic partnerships. Apparently, he had a taste for married women with bored eyes and good posture. I didn't confront her that week, or the one after, because when someone builds a lie this big, you don't knock it over with a single push. You undermine the foundation, let it collapse on its own. I didn't tell her I knew. Not yet. Once you know the truth, you stop looking for a confrontation and start planning an exit. That weekend, I woke up before her. She was still asleep. Face buried in the pillow, hair tangled, one hand resting on the side of the bed where I used to lie. I stared at her for a long time, wondering who she really was now. Not the woman I married, not anymore. That version of Ava had faded like a photograph left out in the sun. I got up, made coffee, and opened a blank notepad. The list started simple. Separate finances. Change passwords. Remove her from joint accounts. Back up important files. Gather her belongings. By the time the coffee went cold, I'd added 8 more items. That afternoon, while she was out for her Saturday flow class, I reset every login we shared: Netflix, Amazon, our Spotify playlists, the cloud storage where our photos were kept. I copied what I wanted and deleted my presence from everything else. Our home Wi-Fi, password changed. My bank account, locked her out. Email recovery options, purged. I didn't erase her world, I just stopped allowing myself to exist in it. I packed her things next. Methodically. No drama. No anger. Just the kind of numb, mechanical clarity you get when you're rearranging a space you no longer recognize. Her shoes went back into their original boxes. I folded her sweaters, zipped her makeup into the pouch she never used, even gathered her earrings from the bathroom drawer. There was a sense of grim efficiency in all of it. I didn't touch her bonsai. It sat on the kitchen counter near the window. This tiny little tree she'd been nurturing since we went to Japan 2 years ago. She used to talk to it like it was a friend. Once, she even whispered that trimming it helped her let go of what doesn't serve. I guess she'd been practicing. When she got home, I was sitting at the dining table with a manila envelope beside me. She stepped inside, set down her tote, and looked around. "Why's my stuff in boxes?" she asked casually, not even angry, just curious. "I thought it was time," I said, "to separate what's yours from what's mine." She didn't reply right away, just crossed her arms and looked at the bonsai. "Can you water it while I'm gone?" she asked softly. "That's what you're worried about right now?" She gave a faint shrug. "It's delicate. So was our marriage." She didn't cry, didn't scream. She nodded, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door. 15 minutes later, she came out with a duffel bag, grabbed a few boxes, and left without saying goodbye. "No, I'm sorry. No, let's talk. Just take care of the bonsai." The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was sterile, like the air after a hospital monitor flatlines. I thought that was it, that I'd seen everything I needed to see. But I hadn't. 2 days later, I was cleaning the apartment. Not for her, just to reclaim it. I opened windows, stripped the bed, took down the framed wedding photo that had been gathering dust on the nightstand. I pulled the last of her clutter from the shelves and dumped it into the return to sender box I'd started keeping by the door. When I went to move the bonsai, I noticed something strange. The ceramic pot wobbled. I lifted it carefully, thinking maybe the stand was warped. But no, the bonsai was steady. What tipped was the wooden base underneath it. A hollow sound. I reached behind and peeled off a strip of old painter's tape. Something was stuck to the underside. A small envelope. No name. No stamp. Just a plain beige envelope taped to the back of the plant stand like a secret confession box. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Ava on a beach, barefoot, hair in a braid, smiling at the camera with her head tilted slightly to the side like she didn't know the photo was being taken. But I recognized the background. It wasn't from any trip we'd taken together. This was the coastline up north Mendocino. And the timestamp? 6 months ago. A weekend I'd been at a work retreat in Aspen. Also inside the envelope was a hotel key card, the same chain as the one in Cherry Creek. Next to it, a receipt with room charges. 2 guests. Bottle of wine. Breakfast service. Room 228. On the back of the receipt, written in pen, was a single letter, E. My chest felt like it was imploding. This wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern, planned, repeated, hidden. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd built a parallel life with this man. A second reality tucked behind drawers and inside hotel room sheets. A series of curated moments she'd shared with him, not with me. I felt sick. Not just from the betrayal, but from the care she'd taken to preserve it. She'd saved the photo, kept the keycard, logged the date. This was a memory she'd wanted to keep, something sacred to her. And she'd hidden it under the one thing she asked me to care for while she walked out of our home like a stranger. Her bonsai. I stared at the little tree on the windowsill. She'd trimmed it so carefully, talked about shaping it with intention. And all the while she was shaping something else, something she never meant for me to see. That night, I sat in the dark with the photo in one hand and the key card in the other, wondering how many times she smiled like that when I wasn't looking. How many pieces of her life were sealed in envelopes I'd never find. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a system, a compartmentalized world where I was background noise. The next day, I rented a storage unit. Everything of hers went in boxes, keepsakes, notes, holiday cards, all of it. I didn't burn them. I didn't shred them. I just removed them from my world. When she texted the next week, just a simple, "Can I come by to grab something?" I responded with the address of the unit and the code to get in. That was all. No greeting, no signature, no closure. Because now I understood. There wasn't going to be closure. There would just be layers, slowly peeling back until the truth stood there, raw and undeniable. And I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I didn't expect to hear from him. But 2 weeks after Ava moved out, after the keycard, the photo, and the bonsai envelope, I got a message. It was short, polite, cautious. "Hi. I think we need to talk. Ethan." At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it. I'd never spoken to the man. I only knew his first name, his face from a hotel lobby, and the way Ava had once said, "He's just a guy at work," while twisting her wedding ring under the table. But there it was. A message. Not defensive. Not arrogant. Just direct. I didn't reply right away. I sat with it for a day. I kept rereading the text, trying to guess his motive. Was this a guilt trip? A warning? Some kind of twisted apology? Part of me didn't want to give him the satisfaction. Another part needed to hear it from someone who wasn't Ava. So I said yes. We met at a neutral spot. Some overpriced coffee place downtown that looked like it had been designed by a Scandinavian furniture catalog. I got there early. He was already sitting by the window, 2 cups on the table, both untouched. Black coffee, no cream, like a man who didn't want comfort. He stood when I walked up, about my height, athletic, the kind of guy I'd probably nod to at the gym but never speak to. Clean haircut, button-down shirt, slight bags under his eyes. "Mark," he said. I nodded, didn't shake his hand. We sat. For a moment, there was nothing but the quiet hum of coffee grinders and low conversation. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I didn't know she was married." Just like that. His voice cracked a little. Not from emotion, more like disbelief that he was even saying those words out loud. I raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" He nodded. "She told me she was divorced. Said her ex moved out a year ago, that she was taking time to rebuild her life." I didn't respond. I just watched him. "I met her at work," he continued. "Well, not exactly work, we're in different departments, but we both went to this networking mixer back in February. She came alone. Told me she hated those things but had to show face. We ended up sitting at the same table." He paused and sipped his coffee. "She made it seem like we just clicked. Told me she'd been through a hard breakup, but she was finally starting to feel like herself again. I bought it. I bought all of it." I sat back and folded my arms. "So when did you find out about me?" He hesitated. "Cherry Creek." I said nothing. "I saw the tracker on her bag," he admitted. "It was tucked in that side pocket with the zipper. She went to take something out, and I saw the blinking light. That startled me. I hadn't thought he'd even noticed. I asked her about it," he went on. "She brushed it off. Said it was a fitness thing, some new Apple product. But I wasn't stupid. I knew something was off." He leaned forward now, his hands clasped in front of him. "I didn't confront her that night, but I started digging. I found her full name. Found your wedding registry online. There was a blog post about your photography business. Mentioned her by name, said you two were high school sweethearts." I clenched my jaw. That post was old. From a time when everything still felt permanent. I couldn't believe it, he said quietly. I'd been seeing her for almost 5 months. 5. And not once did she mention you. Not a ring. Not a slip-up. She had this whole backstory about an emotionally distant ex who didn't want a family, who made her feel like a burden. That hit hard. Because that was me. The burden. I thought I was helping her, Ethan said, voice almost breaking. I thought I was giving her something she was missing. I didn't realize I was helping her cheat on her husband. I looked at him then, not as the man who'd slept with my wife, but as someone who'd been lied to just as deeply. Do you have proof? I asked. He reached into his jacket pocket and slid a flash drive across the table. It's all on there, he said. Messages, photos, voicemails. I don't know if you want them. If I were you, I'd want to know. I picked it up but didn't look at it. I broke it off, he added. The moment I found out. She begged me not to say anything to you. Said it would ruin everything. That's when I knew I had to. He rubbed his hands together like he was trying to warm them, though it wasn't cold. She lied to both of us, he said. I know that doesn't make anything better, but I wanted you to know. I wasn't in on it. I nodded, finally. I believe you. He blinked, surprised. I didn't at first, I said. But now? Yeah, I do. He let out a breath. I don't expect forgiveness. I couldn't live with it. We didn't talk much after that. There wasn't anything left to say. We were two men who'd both been written into the same story without our consent. Two characters in a fiction Ava had authored for her own comfort. He stood first. I'm sorry, Mark. Truly. I nodded. Take care of yourself, Ethan. And then he left. I sat there for another 10 minutes, flash drive in my hand, staring out the window as the city moved around me like it had no idea my life had just collapsed twice. When I got home, I poured myself a drink and plugged the drive into my laptop. She hadn't just created a relationship with Ethan. She'd created an entire version of herself. Photos of them at dinner, hiking in the hills, smiling in front of murals I'd never seen. In every sh*t, she looked relaxed. Younger, lighter. The messages, all built on a script. I've never felt so seen. I didn't know love could feel easy. You make me feel like I matter. I stared at those lines and felt something harden in my chest, because I'd heard those same words. Years ago, when we first met, when she told me I saved her. Now, they belonged to someone else. There were voicemails too. Her voice, soft and int*. Mate. I think about you even when I'm with other people. I hate when you leave. The bed feels empty. You make me feel whole again. I shut the laptop. This wasn't just about love or loneliness. This was about manipulation. She didn't just betray me. She erased me from her life to write herself as someone new. And Ethan? He was just reading from a script she'd already used. That night, I walked through the apartment slowly. Every object suddenly felt staged, like a theater set for a play I hadn't auditioned for. The photos, the candles, the books she never finished. It wasn't just our marriage that was fake. It was the version of her I thought I knew.